Greetings, greetings, greetings. I hope you are doing well and that you are living victoriously. I am Noreen N. Henry, your Victorious Living Strategist. I am the founder and owner of Victorious Living Culture, where it's a Victorious Living movement. And I say a movement because so many are living beneath a victory, being stuck, broken, living in mediocrity. But we don't need to live that way. We can overcome. And we can overcome, not only overcome, but overcoming our circumstances while staying in joy, peace, and happiness to live the victorious life that we are called to live. I am an author of 18 books. I'm a 6-time international best-selling author. I'm an ordained minister, coach, trainer, speaker. I've done many things. I'm about to launch my TV talk show in about a month. But I was so broken. Have you been bothered by brokenness? It's being broken that I had developed emotional eating. You see, my thing is victorious living, and part of victorious living is overcoming in your circumstances to victory. So one of my journeys was overcoming food addiction. Many years ago, I wouldn't eat if something was wrong. But it eventually changed and it switched to eating when something was wrong. I even remember when it started. It was in the 80s. I was sitting in my kitchen with my former husband and we were having a conversation. I don't remember what the conversation was at that time, but I do remember that it wasn't a truly happy time for me. And it was at that point that I developed emotional eating, and I began eating when something was wrong. For years, I struggled with emotional eating. So much so that it progressed to food addiction. When the food addiction began, the result of that was I started to gain excess weight on my body, and of course, I did not like that. I was embarrassed by that. So what I started to do was when I would buy new clothes, I actually started to cut the labels out so that nobody would see what size my clothes were. But even with doing that, you can still see the excess weight on my body. So really it didn't make a difference with me doing that. So it didn't stop me from overeating. Eventually, I learned that what I was doing, there's a name for it. And the name was emotional eating. And even after learning that there's actually a name for what I was doing, that didn't stop me. The vicious cycle continued. And with emotional eating, it brings on other things. It brings on binge eating. It brings on mindless eating. It brings on eating out of boredom, like eating for no reason. All these come about as a result of emotional eating. I wrote my story. It's called Food Addiction, The Struggle Has Been Real. And I believe I wrote that story because you don't hear too much about food addiction like you hear about alcohol or drug addiction. So I believe that I was led to write my story not only to show people that they're not alone, but to bring more awareness to it so that those that are struggling and suffering in silence, because that's what I was doing for many years, suffering in silence because nobody knew that I had a food addiction. I didn't know I had food addiction at that time. So that's why I believe I was led to write that book, to write my story. First of all, to help others know that they're not alone in that struggle, and to bring more awareness to it so that we can gain the right knowledge and we can gain the right help to overcome that vicious cycle, because really it is a vicious cycle. As much as I don't like that I was an emotional eater and became a food addict, it didn't stop me because it's an addiction. So I had to overcome the addiction. Years ago, my children grew up watching me. So one of my sons said to me that we were having a conversation, and he said to me, "You're supposed to eat when something's wrong," and I'm like, "No, no, you're not supposed to eat when something is wrong." So he grew up watching me doing that all these years. So then that made it like it's okay, but it's not. I was like, no. So I was actually shocked to hear him say that. And of course, hearing him say that, what did it do? Did it help me? No. I continued with the struggle. People would tell me, just don't eat. Just lose the weight already. But it's not that simple. It's not that simple. I did diet after diet. It's not that simple when it is an addiction. But there is always hope. So I began to learn about it and learn the reasons why I was doing it. And so I began to undo and relearn. So I've been unlearning and relearning and working on developing the bad habits, breaking the bad habits and creating new habits so that I overcome, because I've overcome the emotional eating. I've overcome the food addiction. I'm still on the journey with overcoming the bad habits, and they're going one by one. This is part of victorious living, overcoming in your circumstances to victory, and not just overcoming, but staying in joy, peace, and happiness while you're going through the journey. Even though I struggled for years with food addiction, and I did struggle for years, I still became an ordained minister. I'm a coach, speaker, trainer. I'm a multiple international best-selling author. I've published 18 books, and there's many more to come. I've led a course, wrote courses, many things, and there's many more to come. So even though I had all those issues, I still overcame, and I'm still overcoming, and I'm still on my journey. So regardless of what, we keep going on, we keep moving forward. It does take work to live victoriously. It doesn't just happen. But there is always hope. There is always hope to overcome and live victoriously. I am a testimony to that. I am Noreen N. Henry, your victorious living strategist.